Okay, so we are putting underfloor heating on a plywood floor that we've laid this morning. It's had 3 coats of SBR as a primer, and now this particular mat that we're putting down is a Devi mat where the element runs in and out of a sticky backed mat. When we unpacked the box this morning, we checked using a multimeter, we checked the resistance through the cable. First of all, to see whether there's continuity, whether or not we've got a flow all the way through from the live, all the way through the mat back again, and we did have. So we looked at the resistance, and we've got 0.075. The element cable is routed into the floor and stuck in there with some with a glue gun, some hot melt adhesive. The sensor is also fitted into its own little black conduit. The sensor comes right in between 2 of the element wires. The end is taped over, and that again is routed into the floor with a glue gun and then into the wall. And what I've done here, in readiness for the electrician wiring it all up, I've drilled a hole through the skirting board so the tiles will come up to about there, so there's some filling to do afterwards. That's not a problem at all. This is dot and dab plasterboard, so we were very lucky. We managed to feed down from the top some conduit, and then I went fishing down to the bottom and pulled up the wires through into what will be the thermostat that's going to go onto the wall. The only other thing to go into the thermostat is the mains power, and that's going to be taken from the back of this double socket down here up to a fixed fused spur and then into the thermostat. That's the electrician's job. He's going to get that sorted out. So all that remains for us to do, that's kind of a first fix for a Devi mat till the electrician does his job. And then what we do now, let's demonstrate how this works. The mat itself is sticky backed, so we're going to come along here. I'll show one more roll. Once we've laid it out to where we want it to be, we simply cut the mat, turn the Devi mat over. This can be done with scissors as well. Okay, so that then is laid out 50 millimeters or so away from all edges, and certainly not under any units or anything like that. The stickiness on the back here is good for about 20 or 30 lifts. So if you don't get it right the first time, you can lift it and lay it again. Okay. Okay, and that's what we're going to do, getting shorter and shorter in a moment. Tread that down so that it stays stuck to the floor. I suppose the camera's going to be able to follow me particularly, but it might be able to follow my feet. Tread that down, get that stuck down. This is a tiny, tiny little kitchen, so we have to keep moving stuff around, but you get the idea. So we'll go up to the edge here, and then what I'm going to do, because there's a filing cabinet, a fridge and a filing cabinet going here, I will cut this a little bit off the wall. So we'll cut this one here, which allows me then to turn the mat completely round on itself and come back in the other direction. So that's how we lay a Devi mat, and we'll come back and talk about it a little bit more when I've got it all down on the floor. Okay, so we tested it in the box. We got that reading. We tested it when we put it into the wall, into the conduit. We got the same reading. We put it on the floor. we got the same reading, and now it's all stuck down with the trailing elements stuck down with the glue gun as well. Our final test shows exactly the same reading. We haven't broken any continuity, we've got the same resistance throughout. It'll be over to the electrician now to wire it up, and we know that everything's all the way back to the wall, all the way back to the switch. We know everything's fine. So we're now ready to wire up the Devi mats that we've spent a couple of days replacing the floor and fitting the Devi mat, tiling the floor. It's all done now. We've tested the resistance again. We've got the same readings all the way through. If you want to know how that's worked out, go and have a look at our video on Ohm's Law, DIY Doctor on Ohm's Law. Quite an interesting video. And what happens is that the cables, the sensor cable and the element cable from the heating mat you saw went into behind the plasterboard, and they come up here. The two very small ones, if the camera could zoom in, the two very small ones, the black and the white cable here, are from the heating sensor. Now there is no polarity on these. No polarity on these at all, so it doesn't matter which sockets they go into. However, because the wires above it, these are the two that we've been testing all the way through. The black is live, the blue is neutral, and the earth, or the bare cable, is the earth. That's the element wires from the heating mat. Remember that the black is live. And because the black is live from the element from the heating mat, we treat the black as live on the sensor cable as well, to avoid any confusion, and it helps us remember. It's not our normal UK colours, but these are the instructions from Devi mat itself. The three cables here should be familiar to you: the live, the brown, neutral, blue, and the yellow and green earth cables come from our mains supply. So from our heating mat, the elements came up the wall with the sensor cable. They are all here in their little conduit, and to get our socket, to get our power, I'm going to ask the camera to zoom right down to this double socket here. Okay, we have connected another cable into the back of that socket, and we've run that up behind the plasterboard. You can see the line that we've drawn on the wall here. This was all done by a qualified electrician, I hasten to add. I'm just telling you what he's done. He's a little bit camera shy, he doesn't want to be on here. So we've connected a 2.5mm twin and earth cable up the wall to a double pole switch. You can find out more about double pole switches in our double pole switch video. It'll tell you what a double pole switch is, but essentially an ordinary single pole switch interrupts the live wire to turn your electricity on and off. A double pole switch interrupts the live and the neutral, so it absolutely isolates the circuit beyond it. So if there's any cross circuit anywhere, a double pole switch will isolate that power. So the cable came up for a double pole switch. If you're wondering how we fed the cable from that socket to this socket, we cut out for our Patris box with a normal a jab saw, a plasterboard saw, and then we went fishing. It's called fishing, and we fish. You can buy some special fishing rods, electricians' fishing rods, but we tend to use, this is a duct for a single lighting cable. You can go and buy these from any hardwood store. We take the lid off, as you can see, and we use this because it's stiff but also very flexible. We use this to fish down behind plasterboard. We get the end of the cable, we tape it to that lid, and we pull it right back up through. So that allows us to pull the cable up from our feed all the way up to our double pole switch, and then there's a smaller piece of cable, the same cable, that goes from the load parts of the double pole switch. So it's the feed going in and the load going out, and the load of course is our heating mat. So the load goes across here into this box where our Devi regulator is going to go, and a thermostat control, and that's all going to be wired into the back of that. We'll show you how that's wired in a few moments when the electrician comes back, and we'll get that all wired up, and then we'll show you the heating mat in operation. Okay, so before we actually pass it over to the electrician, I'm going to show you what he's going to do. This is the back of the thermostat box for the heating mat, and you can see on my far right we have two neutrals together. One is indicated that it's the mains neutral, and the other arrow for the mains goes across to the live. So mains neutral and mains live go in these two terminals. The load, which is the mat cable, the neutral load and the live load go in the corresponding terminals there. The sensor mat goes in these two. So it's all very clearly labelled where these cables fit into this sensor mat, into the thermostat, and when that's turned round, that then, see, there's even an arrow there to show you which way up it goes. So that goes into the box, and the plate is then screwed on the top. There's a little plug there, as you can see. The face plate, let me just get that to show you. This is the face plate, and you can see once these are wired up, this stays in the box, and on the rear of the face plate, I'm hoping the camera can pick that up with a bit of zooming in. On the rear you can see the terminal box there that simply plugs in to the back of the control box. So that's wired up, that stays in the back box, and that simply plugs into it with the face plate, so that you've got a touch screen there. So we'll show you that when that's all done. And there you can see the completed thermostat in place. The setup's very easy, go through the manual. If you have the sensor wires not connected properly, if they're not tight, then the thermostat will tell you, a message will flash up. You need to make sure the terminals are tightly screwed down, and the rest of it is self-explanatory. But now you know how to wire a Devi mat and enjoy your heated floor.